My name is Marcus, and if you're listening to this right now, I picture you somewhere cozy, maybe tucked under a blanket with the rain tapping against your window, or perhaps on a long drive with the road stretching out like an endless promise. Stories like mine aren't just told, they're felt, deep in the chest, where regrets and redemptions collide. This is my confession, raw and unfiltered, the kind you'd scroll through on Reddit late at night, searching for that spark of hope in someone else's mess. But before I pull you into the whirlwind of my life, let's make a connection. Where are you listening from today? Drop it in the comments below. Knowing you're out there, from bustling cities to quiet towns, makes sharing this all the more real. I was a struggling father back then, scraping by in the shadow of a world that seemed to spin faster without me. My wife, Clara, had passed away 3 years earlier from an illness that came swift and merciless, leaving me with our 2 young boys, Tommy, 8, with his mother's bright eyes and endless questions, and little Ben, just 5, who still clung to my leg like I was his whole world. We lived in a cramped apartment on the edge of Oak Ridge, a mid-sized town where factories hummed day and night, turning out parts for machines I'd never understand. I worked double shifts at the local warehouse, loading trucks until my back screamed and my hands bled from the rough crates. Paycheck to paycheck, that's how we survived. Macaroni dinners, secondhand clothes from the thrift store, and dreams deferred for another day. But the real grind wasn't the job. It was the conflict that gnawed at me from within. My children, Tommy and Ben, had grown ungrateful in ways that twisted the knife deeper each day. It started small after Clara's death. Tommy rolling his eyes at my homemade lunches, Ben whining about not having the latest toys like his school friends. But as time wore on, influenced by their wealthier cousins and the flashy lives they saw on TV, it turned into outright disrespect. "Dad, why can't we have a big house like Uncle Ray?" Tommy would snap, his voice laced with accusation. Uncle Ray was Clara's brother, a successful real estate mogul who lived in a sprawling mansion up on the hill, with a pool that sparkled like diamonds and cars that purred like contented cats. Ray and his wife Vivian never missed a chance to remind me of my failures. Subtle digs at family gatherings about how I couldn't provide for the boys, how they deserved better. The kids picked it up like a virus. Ben refusing to hug me after a long day, calling my stories boring, Tommy sneaking off to Ray's house for real fun, and coming back with tales of video games and pizza parties that made our life seem like a faded photograph. The neighbors piled on too, mocking my poverty and whispers that carried on the wind. Mrs. Hargrove next door would tut-tut as I fixed our leaky roof with duct tape, saying loud enough for the block to hear, "Poor Marcus, always one step from the poorhouse." The boys heard it all, and it poisoned them further. Tommy getting into fights at school defending our shabby home, only to blame me later. I bore it silently, my heart heavy with the weight of it all. Clara had always said, "Love 'em through it, Marcus. Kids test the branches, but roots run deep." So I did, pouring my soul into being there, even as they pushed me away. The air hung heavy that summer evening, thick with the promise of a storm brewing on the horizon. Dark clouds rolled in like uninvited guests, and the distant thunder echoed my exhaustion after a grueling shift. I was walking home from the bus stop, my boots scuffed and my lunch pail swinging empty at my side, when the inciting incident struck like a bolt from the blue. There, slumped on a park bench under a flickering street lamp, was a stranger, an older man, maybe in his 70s, his suit rumpled and soaked from an earlier drizzle, his face etched with fatigue. He clutched a briefcase like it was his last lifeline, and as I passed, he looked up with eyes that held a quiet desperation. "Sir," he called out hoarsely, "you wouldn't have a moment. My car's broken down a mile back, and my phone's dead. I need to get to a meeting downtown, but this town's a maze to me." I paused, the first fat drops of rain splattering the pavement. The boys were waiting at home, Tommy probably glued to the TV, Ben drawing on the walls again, and I had nothing left to give. But something in his voice, a tremor of vulnerability, stirred the memory of Clara helping a lost soul years ago. A selfless sacrifice, I thought, What would it cost me? I said, hop in my truck, gesturing to the rusty pickup parked nearby. It's old, but it'll get us there. I'm Marcus. He introduced himself as Mr. Leonard Voss, shaking my hand with surprising firmness. As we drove through the gathering storm, rain lashing the windshield like accusations, we talked. He was vague about his business, consulting for big firms, he said. But he listened as I poured out my heart, the boys' ingratitude, Ray's condescension, the endless grind. He said, "Sounds like you're carrying the world, Marcus. But remember, strength isn't in what you hold, it's in what you let go." I dropped him at a sleek office building downtown, refusing his offer of gas money. I said, "Just pay it forward." He nodded, eyes gleaming in the lightning flashes. "I will, Marcus, more than you know." As he vanished into the lobby, the storm broke fully, drenching the city in sheets of water. I drove home, soaked but strangely light, unaware that this small act had set the wheels of fate in motion. The next day dawned muggy and oppressive, the storm's remnants leaving puddles that mirrored the overcast sky. It was the day of Ray's annual family barbecue, a lavish affair at his mansion where the elite of Oak Ridge gathered to network and flaunt. Steaks sizzled on imported grills, a live band played under string lights, and kids splashed in the pool while adults sipped cocktails by the fire pit. I arrived with the boys in tow, my faded jeans and work shirt standing out like a sore thumb amid the designer outfits. Tommy and Ben bolted straight for their cousins, barely acknowledging me. The tension built slowly, like heat rising from the grill. Ray clapped me on the back, too hard as always, muttering, "Good to see you made it, Marcus. Help yourself to the scraps. Wouldn't want you going hungry." Vivian chimed in with her saccharine smile. "The boys look so happy here. It's a shame they don't get this every day." The neighbors milled about, echoing the sentiment. "Marcus does his best, bless him," one said loudly, pity dripping like honeyed venom. Before we dive deeper into the chaos that unfolded, let me pause here for a breath. Stories like this simmer before they explode, don't they? If you're hooked so far, smash that like button. It fuels the fire for more tales like mine. And remember, thank you for taking the time to hear my story. In a world rushing by, moments like this matter. The turning point came as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. Ray gathered everyone for announcements, his voice booming over the chatter. "Folks, big news! I've secured a massive investor for my next development, Leonard Voss, the tech mogul whose companies revolutionize industries. He's here today to finalize the deal." Murmurs of awe rippled through the crowd. Voss? The name rang a bell, but I shrugged it off, until the man himself stepped forward from the patio doors. It was him, the stranger from the bench, now impeccably dressed in a crisp suit, exuding quiet power. His eyes scanned the gathering, landing on me with a knowing smile. The power dynamic flipped in that instant. My humble act had connected me to a giant. But the climax ignited when Ray, oblivious, turned the spotlight on me for sports. "Before we toast, let's hear from my brother-in-law Marcus, the struggling dad who's always got a sob story. Tell us, Marcus, how's life in the trenches? Maybe Voss here can toss you a bone. Charity for the family failure." Laughter erupted, sharp as shattered glass. Vivian joined in. "Yes, dear Marcus, do share. The boys deserve better than your excuses." Tommy and Ben giggled nervously, their faces flushing as the crowd's eyes bored into me. The humiliation burned, slow and deep. My sons, my blood, laughing at their own father. I stood, voice steady despite the storm inside. "I've given everything from my family. That's enough." Before the mockery could swell, Voss raised his hand, silencing the yard like a conductor halting an orchestra. His voice was calm, emotional, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Marcus isn't the failure here." Gasps echoed. "Last night in that downpour, I was stranded, car dead, no help in sight. This man, Marcus, gave me a ride, shared his time, his story. No questions, no rewards sought. Just pure, selfless sacrifice. The crowd leaned in, the atmosphere electric. Voss continued, building the drama. I'm Leonard Voss, yes, the investor Ray Quartz. But seeing this attempt to humiliate a man of true character, it reveals the rot beneath the shine. Ray, your deal? Off the table. Instead, Marcus, I offer partnership, a stake in my ventures, funding for your boy's future. Your kindness showed me real strength. The reversal hit like thunder. Ray's face crumpled, his bluster evaporating. What? But you can't! Vivian clutched her pearls, tears welling as whispers turned to condemnation. The neighbors averted eyes, shame washing over them. Tommy and Ben stared, white-eyed, as the laughter died on their lips as realization dawned. Their father, the failure, had just upended everything. Chaos reigned in those moments. Guests applauding Voss, Ray stammering apologies, Vivian fleeing inside. The boys rushed to me, hugs tight, murmurs of, "Sorry, Dad," lost in the uproar. The arrogants were exposed, their facades cracking like dry earth on the rain. In the resolution that followed, the shaming ran deep. Ray's business stumbled without Voss's backing, forcing him to seek my advice, humbled, hat in hand. Vivian volunteered at the local shelter, her superiority stripped away. The neighbors? They knocked on my door with genuine offers of help, their mockery replaced by respect. Tommy and Ben transformed overnight, helping with chores, sharing stories around our table, gratitude blooming like flowers after a storm. With Voss's reward, I started a community program for struggling families, turning our apartment into a hub of hope. We moved to a modest house, but the real wealth was in the bonds rebuilt. Years later, as I watch my boys, now young men, kind and strong, I reflect on that rainy night. It wasn't luck, it was a choice, a selfless act that echoed back tenfold. The moral? Kindness is the mightiest force, humility the truest armor. In a world that mocks the lowly, remember, true wealth lies not in what you amass, but in the hearts you touch. As I wrap this up, tears in my eyes even now, thank you again for taking the time to hear my story. It's a confession, yes, but also a lesson. Be the light in someone's storm. You never know when it'll illuminate your own path. If this resonated, share your own reversal in the comments. Until next time, stay humble, stay kind.